All right. We are on the air. Everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. This is the first ever live stream. We're making it happen. I'm
Yeah.
excited. Uh, Joining the show, we got Barrington Martin King Randall. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, boss? Good to be here.
Good to be here. Thank you for having us, Evan.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, for anybody who's tuning in, I've had both of these gentlemen on the podcast before individually. And both episodes were fantastic. And two of the most knowledgeable people that I know, especially in my own age group. I mean, we're all in our 20s. We're young guys, sort of the future, So I'm excited. I mean, I'd love to start just with like what you guys are seeing right now. I mean, I know you guys are both in Georgia. So what is it that you're seeing? We're post-election, state of the world. What are kind of your guys' thoughts about everything that's transpiring? Because it feels a little bit like a shit show, not going to lie. Yes. So, I mean, Barrington, do you want to start just with your seeing? And
oh, man. Yeah, I'll go in very, very briefly. I just think that despite the fact that I believe that we are divided more than we've ever been divided before, I don't think the foundation of the divisiveness is what everybody is saying it is. Like, everyone is blaming Trump for everything, but it's not. To me, it's not his fault. I believe that when I look at the media and just how the media has infiltrated people's psyche and inflicted nothing but fear and hatred upon them, and almost in the sense of where people have become so divided, where it's like, if you're not this, then you have to be the other, and those are the only two choices you have. I think that we're seeing a problem with that because people aren't broadening their horizons and understanding that to all the issues we have in society right now, there are multiple perspectives to those issues. But the media is so powerful now than it's ever been. It is really, I would say, taking over the public opinion to the point where we are so divided that if you do not agree with the popular opinion, you're automatically alienated or ostracized, which is ridiculous. Like, that is crazy. And people are not even seeing that they're becoming the embodiment of ideologies that they hate themselves. And I think that I think this is a great tone to start the conversation off of, because I don't know, like King Randall and I follow each other, and we may not speak all the time, but I agree with a lot of things that he says often, because it just seems like rational people see what's going on,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, King, do you want to build off that? Because I mean, I know you feel the same way, with everything I see you posting about.
Yeah, well, for the most part, I'm a big moving forward type of person. I'm always looking at life with the glass half full. I don't have time to look at the glass half empty, because as long as I do that, then I'll eventually have no water. So I'm big on, the glass being half full. So regardless of who's become the president or what happens with the election, I have to move forward and I have to make sure that the people in my community are going to move forward, regardless of if they are knowledgeable enough or not to move forward. I'm going to force them to move forward. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure that we're moving forward. That's the biggest thing for me, because a lot of people are backtracking and we're thinking about so much that has happened in the past, when we could just simply move forward and move on with our lives. And we're allowing, these political figures to divide us, like even down to your family members. These politicians don't even know us, and I've known you my whole life, but you want to, associate yourself with me because of political, differences. To me, it's not that deep, just being blunt, it's not that deep. And I have friends, of all different parts of the political spectrum, but, now we have people trying to cancel each other based off of who you support and things like that, or if you're conservative or if you're a liberal. To me, that those things don't matter as long as we can move our community forward. Now people have been raised differently. So of course you're going to have, different, mindsets. But for the most part, I think that if we could, just coexist and get along, I think things will be okay. But for the most part, it's just a lot of rah right now. I think things will calm down eventually, but I'm just big on just moving forward. We got to keep moving forward. We got to keep looking at the glass half full.
I mean, I love that. I love that. I mean, I take the same half glass full mentality, in the sense that I think we are moving forward. I think all dark times lead to positive transformation. But at the same time, I look at what is taking place with, like what Barrington was saying, with the media and the divisiveness, and the fact that we are more divided than ever before. And we see, for example, people on the left talking about making lists of Trump supporters. And we see sort of this, there's almost like a psychological warfare that's taking place. And I try not to use the word warfare like lightly. Like that's it, to me, it feels like a war on the psyche. And I wonder how people can sort of step out of that divisive mindset, that divisive embodiment of, you know, becoming what they ultimately seek to eliminate, like Barrington was saying. So, and it's a question that it's so huge, I don't necessarily have an answer, but I mean, do you guys have thoughts on that? Like, how do we step out of the divisiveness? I feel like it's a collective effort, you know?
Yeah. I think like it's a multifaceted approach, honestly. And I'm a heavy believer that there are different ways to skin a cat, right? So I think that ultimately, when we look at the issues in our society and we look at the issues that's going on specifically within our nation, it's easy for us to point out the problems, right? Then it's easy for us to even point out the solution to those problems. The only place that we may differ is how to get to those solutions. So it's almost as if we're all three in the car together driving, right? And I'm the driver, and let's say we're going to something arbitrary. Let's say we're going to Miami together and we're starting in Georgia. Now there are so many different ways to, get to Miami from Georgia, right? And me being the driver, of course, I'm going to be automatically biased because I'm the one that's like controlling the car. But at the end of the day, I should be able to be like, you know what? King had the best route, the quickest route, the most efficient route. And if he convinces you, Evan, of that, why can't I not put down my biases, understanding that, yes, I am driving the car, but we're all in this together, that we can just go the most efficient route to get to that place. And I think that when we look at our problems, we have to understand that we all want the same things. We all want to be able to take care of our families. We all want a great healthcare, for example. We all want to be able to allow the fruits of our labor, to manifest itself in the best way we see how. Now, the only problem is, can we come together, come all to the table and figure out the most efficient means for us to get everything that we want? And I believe that we can do that. But when you have all of these, other variables coming in, influencing us, manipulating us based on our emotions, manipulating us based on misinformation, that's when things get cloudy. And that's what we have to do. We have to become more unified than we've ever before, through empathy and compassion, through understanding that we want the same things. And I believe that only then we'll be able to, create the necessary solutions we need moving forward.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I mean, King, do you want to build on that? I love the part about focusing on the solutions. I've heard a great quote. Leaders spend 5% of the time on the problem and then 95% of the time on the solution. Yeah. And that's how you get things done. I feel like we're stuck in the problem phase. We're stuck in the, oh my God, it's madness out there. That's kind of what we're focused on, but that's what we're told to focus on. So.
And I think, talking about using Barrington's analogy, even with just finding the right route, can we please start driving the car? Because a lot of us are stuck. We will sit years talking about what we need to do, and how we need to do it and what route should we go, but we never even turn the engine on. We have to drive the car. Let's find out which route. Let's pick one and go. We have to move, in order to, start fixing our communities. Even like with what we're doing here in Albany with the youth. I'd come to the city, a while ago saying, hey, I was 18 and I had come from boot camp, and I was like, look, I want to do something with the youth. We need to get them busy, et cetera. And everybody's like, yeah. And that's it. Yeah. Like, right. Great. Okay. And then nothing. So I was like, bump it. I'll take some kids and they're going to stay at my house and we'll figure some stuff out and we're going to find some things to do. But you got to drive the car. We got to get in there and move around. And it's not a lot to say, with that. We got to start somewhere. Just start, regardless of, as long as we want to get the solutions that, we all are in agreement with. regardless of the route, if you just need to go get you another car, then you take your car and drive. As long as we all get to the same promised land, that's totally fine. You ain't got to drive with me. That's totally up to you. So I definitely believe if we just go ahead and start trying to make the change and be the change that we want to see, and stop relying on everyone else and relying on the government and relying on the politicians and relying on this person and that person and Donald Trump and Joe Biden, rely on yourself. Do for self. You do for self, you can make a lot happen. So I feel like if we start doing for self and our community, I think our communities would be a better place, but we're too busy, again, trying to figure out which route to go and who should drive the car. Drive your own car. Everybody, you don't have to have somebody, leading you or somebody driving your car. You get in there and drive it yourself. You'll learn on the way, just figure it out and get started.
Absolutely, man. I love that. And, what do you guys think it is that prevents people from driving the car, prevents people from just starting? Is it fear? Is it lack of self-trust? Like, what do you guys think?
It's fear. Like we were speaking earlier, and this is what I learned from being in politics. There are three foremost biggest motivators of human activity, and that's love, fear, and hatred. Those are the top three that motivate humans to do what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? And right now in our society, what I'm seeing is a lack of love and more so of fear and hatred driving every single decision that we're making as a collective consciousness, so to speak. And this is why you see a lot of people making the decisions that they're making, because if you tell a person, hey, you have 100% freedom over your life, 100% control. Everything that happens to you, positive and negative, is because of you. That puts the fear of God into people. Because essentially, when you're afraid, you don't want to make the wrong decision, but then a lot of people don't want to live with making the wrong decision as well. And so when you have those two ideologies that's always in the back of people's minds, it's easy to make excuses as to why things aren't going the way that they should be going. And I think that ultimately, if people get out of the fear and understanding that, or taking the accountability that everything that they do, everything that they decide and don't decide is overall the either barrier to entry towards success, or even the reason success is granted to them, I think that we'll see a change that needs to happen, along a wide array of people in our country. But until then, people just going to allow fear to put the battery in their back to make whatever decision that they want to make.
Right. I would definitely agree. King, do you want to build on that?
I definitely think that for the most part, a lot of people do let fear hold them back. And I'll say it's a controlled fear. People making you afraid to do things, especially in this day and age of worrying about what people have to say about you. I think that stops a lot of us, especially children and adults as well, but mostly children. We're in this day and age where what people think of you is the most important thing of your life. So a lot of people are scared to go and shoot that free throw, to make the points. So they'll simply just stay on the bench the whole game and won't even get in because, again, they're scared to fail. So I definitely think the biggest thing, for me, is simply getting out there and just moving. Regardless of if you fail, you still tried. And I think trying is a big portion of moving forward. And you'll gain confidence. You'll see where you're messing up at, and you can correct yourself. Even constructive criticism, find some people along the way that are actually trying to go where you're trying to go, or have been there and want to see you get there and be better than they were. Emulate somebody who has been to where you're trying to go, and watch the mistakes that they made and try not to make those mistakes. There are a variety of ways, to get in that car and start moving and not let fear hold you back, or people are going to say something about you regardless if you do something or not. I don't care if you're doing the greatest charity work in the world or you're giving everyone $1 million, somebody's still going to find something to say, so just get out there and do what you choose to do something that's in your heart, that, your mind and your heart is telling you, I need to do this, for my community. I need to do this for myself. I need to do this for my children. Get out there and do it. As simple as that. And this conversation could help anybody, even if it helps one person, get out there and make that change, make it happen, be the change you want to see.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And, we've all worked with youth specifically. I know Barrington and I both come from an education background. King, what you're doing with the X for Boys group is phenomenal. And, I'm working in a school right now where even within the school, there's a lack of promoting, at least right now, with everything that's going on with the pandemic and all these different things that are happening. And there's a lack of the promoting of this growth and sort of going after what you want to embody. And there is sort of this uh, element of fear that is being instilled into the youth, an element of there's a lack of critical thinking that's being taught. And so I look at the youngest generations, the future leaders of the free world. And I'm not worried, but I wonder where this is going to come from for a lot of people and sort of where our societal priorities are. And if I think the people who are, working in these schools and teaching the youth and are really the role models have a lot to work on within themselves, because if it were, the younger generations would be learning these qualities if the majority of the population had it within themselves. So I think a lot of people, especially you start getting up to 30, 40, 50 years old, you get so rigid in your belief systems, you get so rigid in your ideologies and ways of thinking that you just get comfortable, and anything that challenges that is fearful. That's why people are, I think that's why the demonization or like dehumanization of Trump, for example, like they don't want to see themselves in Trump and realize that this guy's a human being, like, so I feel like it's just, we need almost a return to humanity, a return to seeing ourselves in one another. And that's something I've really spent a lot of time on myself. I don't know if you guys wanted to build on that in any way, and like just what that takes, because
Yeah,
it's
like
so important.
I think we've taken it a little too far, like right now, in politics, because like, of course, politics used to be this person running against this person, but now they're taking it so far, like it's good versus evil and all that.
Yeah.
It's so extra. I'm just like, oh my God, like they're really tugging on people's emotions. It's so serious. People are fighting about this stuff. It's ridiculous, looking at, how media is doing our minds. It's called television programming for a reason. That's why I don't watch, television that often.
Yep.
But just looking at how it makes people feel, like because I took the children to the White House, like they were trying to cancel me in my city because of that. I'm just like, we're taking the kids, it was free, like so. But that's where we are. There again, it's, I believe we're just taking it a little too far. We do need to get back to humanity. Like, we're all still humans. These are positions, and you may disagree, you may agree, but we have to understand and respect the offices that these people hold. And as long as things are, running the way they should be, and you're putting people into place that you like to be there, and you're voting, you're taking care of things in your own community as well, and I honestly think communities would be better if we get out there and do things ourselves. I do feel like that. We shouldn't, okay, we've elected a mayor, now we're gonna wait for the mayor to do something for us, or we have a new chief of police, so we're gonna wait for the chief of police to go and help us with our kids and all that nonsense. I'm just like, that's not gonna help, our communities. We have to go help our community. The root word is unity. We have to get out and go work in our communities ourselves, because we have this big issue, a lot of people who they vote for or who's in their positions or district, state representatives and all that, they want to put all the blame on them. I'm like, what is that one person supposed to do? You see all 50 of you at this town hall complaining. Now all 50 of you go and do something collectively together and make something happen. But people fail to look at it like that. But we got to get back to humanity. I definitely agree with what you said.
Absolutely.
Yes, I want to further that point and state that the biggest thing, there are two biggest things that we're missing, and I say this to everyone I talk to, are empathy and compassion. We have to understand it's not rocket science. It's that you have been controlled more so by your reptilian brain, off your emotions for so long, being gaslit by media. And I hate using that word because it's a fairly new term in my.
It's thrown around a lot.
Yeah. Like the words I hate right now are what is this? What is that? Safe space, because essentially there is no safe space.
Yep.
unpack traumas. Like I don't want. I'm tired of hearing all. And excuse me, it's all bullshit. Because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and life is hard. Life is expected to be hard. Anytime you want to be great, anytime you want to accomplish anything worth having in life, it's going to be hard. None of us asked to be here. Then on top of that, we only learned from other people, i.e. our parents, who didn't know what the fuck to do when they got here either. And they also learned from other people who didn't know shit, i.e. our grandparents, right? Yep. This is the thing that people have to understand, right? Empathy and compassion. First and foremost, give yourself grace. You're going to make mistakes. Don't harp over any mistake that you make. Now, you shouldn't make the same mistake continuously, but that's a whole different conversation, right? Then when you're able to do that for yourself, you should automatically be able to do that for other people. And understanding that if I'm not perfect, then they're not perfect, which means that, hey guys, we're all gonna fuck up at some point in time. We just hope that when we fuck up, it's not at someone else's expense, or it doesn't oppress, our mistakes doesn't oppress other people. And I feel like essentially, if we carry on the ideology that we have to be compassionate to each other, we have to empathize with each other, even if we don't possess the same experiences. Even if I'm super wealthy and you're poor, I have to understand that, hey, certain situations, you were born into, you had nothing to do with it. It's just how the cards were dealt. Now, how can we get you out of that situation? What can I do, or what type of understanding of your perspective of life can I have that will better allow me to make better decisions for people like you? And I think that when we start understanding different perspectives and understanding that essentially we are not perfect, and that we gotta just start caring for each other moving forward, I promise you, like within the span of this, things will change. But until we just automatically demonize people because they feel differently than we are, until we demonize people because of their successes and thinking that they are privileged or more privileged than us, when essentially all of us have privilege in the world, I think that we can make the proper changes going forward.
Absolutely. And I loved both of what you guys were saying. And, I view the term privilege, like I view it just as a privilege to be alive, like to be breathing. Like life is a gift, like worth cherishing. And, if we can have empathy and compassion in our daily lives for who we are, like uniquely, like we can all make a unique difference, that's going to sort of transcend into our daily conversations, into our interactions, into our actions, and like the difference that we make in the world. And I look at sort of the direction that we're going collectively. I mean, if everybody was embodying these qualities, we would not be where we are right now. Like that guaranteed. Like we would be finding the solutions rather easily. I mean, I look at sort of what's happening with, for example, I think censorship is a huge issue. We see tons of facts and, people's legit, questioning things being removed because it goes against a sort of mainstream agenda. It goes against sort of certain lines of thinking. We see people who have made mistakes just being eliminated, cut off, you're done, like out of society, canceled. And this whole cancel culture movement, I think it comes from, Barrington, you mentioned the safe spaces. I think it just comes from people an unwillingness to be uncomfortable, an unwillingness to expand our thinking, expand our perspective, in realizing, I think everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to make a positive impact. But I think a lot of people get attached to their own worldview and assume that their way of thinking is the right way of thinking. It's the only way of thinking. And so instead of trying to learn and grow, they sort of enforce and make that worldview rigid. And that's where you see a lot of this divisiveness and hatred. And I think it's safe to say that's on both sides of the political aisle, the political spectrum. I mean, do you guys see, like, regardless, I guess, of who is president, technically it's still not decided, despite, you could say whatever you want about that. Technically it's still not decided. There's people still putting money on Trump, and as long as people are still betting on him, I guess I can't say it's over. But regardless of like the incoming administration, like, what do you guys see in terms of, is this only going to compound a bit more until it sort of blows up in our faces and more people will awake to it? Is that what it's going to take? Like, what's the direction that you think is sort of we're trending right now?
Oh, I think I'm gonna be brief and I'm gonna let King get into this because I definitely want to hear his response on this, and I want to hear your response on this too, Evan, because I just think that before I answer this, we may have a lot of similarities, but we may arrive to the same destination or different route, right? So I personally feel like at the state that we are in now, all of this is going to implode on both sides. I think that we've reached a point now where, and I feel like the people are going towards this, but they haven't understood it yet. But the state of our government, as far as how our government is structured, where it's a two-party system that's monopolized the party away from the people, they have seen that it's not working. And it's not working in the sense of where now, if you're paying attention, you should see, or at least understand the notion that the government should be working for us. It's a reason why they're called public service, but they haven't been doing that. They've been using us as fuel to their fire towards power, right? So I think we're witnessing this on both sides of the aisle, where you're seeing infighting between the Democrats, and you're definitely seeing infighting amongst the Republicans. And this is why, essentially, I've been telling people this over the last couple of years, Donald Trump was the best thing to happen to America as far as the American government, because now we see all the holes in our society. And so I think that all of these things that are happening right now are going to implode. And the reason I say this is because all of this has, and I mean these ideologies that we've been seeing arise over the last couple of years, it's not based in any type of selflessness. It's not based in any type of community, but it's based in selfishness. And this is why it's going to implode at some point in time. And we're watching it unravel in real time.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. King, did you want to build on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with Barrington here. It's simple as that. It's definitely going to implode. I do not want to be around the day if they do decide that it's going to be overturned or whatever. I don't want to see none of this stuff, because again, after everything that happened with the George Floyd protests and the Breonna Taylor protests, if they decide to overturn this thing or whatever, I just do not see any beauty happening at all. I definitely feel like it's going to get really ugly, uglier than it already is, in regards to people, and their emotions and things like that. But right now we're just at a real emotional point. 2020 has just been a year. I'm definitely ready for it to be over. It's been a year. And granted, even, I mean, I do believe that this year has been a blessing to some people in regards to getting time off and getting time to relax with your families, etc. Again, just looking at the glass half full. But I definitely think right now things will implode in regards to our government. Just like he said, I do believe the president is the best thing to happen. And people looked at me saying that I was voting for him like I was just like a real fan. Like, I'm not a fan of any major politicians, but my thing was we had been doing so much better in our communities because we have our political shades on. There's nobody in there sweet talking us and smiling and saying all the America. Today we're going to do this, that, and the third. No, we have somebody in there just going to talk their trash and going to say whatever they want. And I know exactly what's going on because he's talking my language, so I definitely understand. And I wanted people to look at that. I don't want anybody in there that I don't know if they're telling the truth or not. I don't want anybody in there cute and cuddly and smiling all the time and all that. No, I don't want that. I want a real person in there, that I can relate to and laugh at and things like that. Not the typical politician. But I definitely feel like he caused us to put our political shades on. Like, everybody is paying attention to politics right now, from kids to super old people. Like, that's where we are. He has us like that, because of where the media has placed him. And I always like to mention what Malcolm X used to talk about the media. The media is pushing something. It's usually the opposite, and they usually have something going on. And that's why I really actually looked into who he was, because I'm just like, if they want us to hate him so bad, why do they want us to hate him? So let me figure out what's going on here. Why do they want me to not like this guy? Because I never follow the media. Anytime the media is pushing the big narrative, I'm sure it's the complete opposite of the truth, because that's where we are in 2020, regardless of what news station you watch. So everything's based off of doing your own research now, because you're rarely going to find any news station that's just not biased and not gonna, tell a lie, quote unquote. They'll, manipulate words and things like that. But that's where we are, you know, and I definitely feel like things will implode, you know, in regards to our government. And I'm glad, you know, Trump was here, because now he's exposing a lot, you know, in regards to our government. And that's why I was in agreement with him having another term.
Right. No, I definitely agree with what both you guys are saying. I think it's going to implode in our faces. And I wonder, like, I guess regardless of the results of whatever the courts find, whatever ends up happening, it seems very clear that neither side is going to sort of just roll over. So, I mean, there's a lot of people who have thrown around the word civil war. I don't know if it's going to get to that point. That makes me like cringe a little bit because, but you know, you can never underestimate the power of people acting off of their emotions, especially when it's an emotion strongly such as hate. And, you know, King, you brought up a great point about like, why has the media made this man into, I mean, they've made him into Adolf Hitler, to be perfectly honest. And it's, you look at what sort of has gone on, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, we have to really research ourselves to find truth and to speak truth. And it takes courage to speak truth, because everyone is like, that's not what the news told me. What are you talking about? So it becomes almost this, like, you have to go against the grain to really try and understand what's going on in the world. And I think that scares people. And and I just sort of wonder what it's going to take to get like people to uncover truth and escape from that emotion. I think it's going to have to blow up in our faces in some way. You know, I mean, I'm leaving the East Coast in like a month because I don't want to be here when things implode. I'm moving out. I'm going to South Dakota for a little bit where there's nothing going on because it's like, I'm not going to take part in this. I'm just going to watch from afar. So I don't know if you guys want to build on like what is true in the world today. I guess we could ask that. Like, what is the truth? Like, why? There was a New York Times article that came out. I think it was about, in specific, the coronavirus vaccine. And we don't have to get into the specifics of the vaccine. That's a whole rabbit hole in itself. But they were talking about, like, they said, don't do your own research on this vaccine. And I think that's a perfect example of sort of the narrative that's fed. Like, don't do your own research. Don't question these things. Listen to what we're saying. And so I wonder what your guys' thoughts are on that, and like how just build off that.
Do you not understand how nuts that is? well, it's a couple of things. It's nuts to say that, for one, and then it's nuts to actually believe that. Like, and this is why it's like a double-edged sword, because now we live in the information age, right? But there's so much misinformation. And when you understand the human psyche, what I mean by that is, when things are so easy for you to obtain, you get lazy and you really don't want to, or you don't have to put in the work. So you accept things at face value for what they are, and oftentimes you just leave it as that. And this is the biggest beef I have with our society as a collective, because anytime someone questions the narrative or the common narrative, they are automatically deemed the bad guy. And it shouldn't be that way, because when you understand, I forget the name of the act, but I used to tweet about this all the time earlier this year, where it was passed and it gave the media, I want to say, full force to print whatever they want to print, essentially, and you could get, like, it didn't have to be fact checked, but basically what I'm saying is, it's just like, to answer your question too, truth is, well, it's a couple of answers to that. Perception is reality. So whatever people perceive, they're going to automatically accept as truth. But this is when you have to come into play, or what has to come into play is like alternate resources, or basically many different media outlets that you can just compare and contrast the things that they say. Because anytime you just get your news just from one place, it's biased, because it's based on capital, it's based on money. And if you get it from one place, you're gonna believe whatever they want you to believe, not what you have come to your own conclusions about using critical thinking.
Right. I definitely agree with that. King, do you want to build on that?
What was your original question?
I mean, so like, what is like I see you as somebody, for example, who does their own research, who comes to their own conclusions. Like, what does it mean to like find truth? Like, what is truth in this world? Like, how do we define the truth? I suppose it's kind of a broad question, but
Yeah, I think that particular truth is honestly, again, where you are, who raised you, what country you're from, etc. Because my truth may not be their truth. Their
Mm,
right may be my wrong. So I think that's truth is a product of your environment,
right.
and what you surround yourself by. But in this age of, just like you were saying, of not doing your own research, I was actually in regards to, like, sometimes looking at different police shootings and things like that. I've always been an advocate, for police brutality and things like that. However, when you're wrong, and that's where I say, hey, okay, that's not even, I know we watched the same video. And so we're like, well, let's wait, until some more facts come out. We don't want the facts. I'm looking at tweets. I screenshotted them of people saying we don't want the facts. We don't want to know the rest. I'm just like, are you okay? Like, this is where we are, and I screenshot. I was like, look at us. Like, we're literally saying we don't want to know the full story. We don't want to know the facts. I see this video of this white guy shooting a black guy. I want to be mad. Leave me alone. Like, that's where we are, so, but that's how they have us, that's how they have us. They don't have us angry enough at the things we need to be angry at. They have us angry at what they want us angry at. And again, that's where we are with the media. And I don't understand why people don't, look at that and say, man, they have a lot of control over our lives. Like, even with the protests and the riots, the media could have stopped all the protests if they liked. They could have stopped all the riots. They could have stopped the looting. The media controls so much. Social media, it controls so much. And even when I was down I went to the Atlanta riots, just, getting filmed down there. I was doing some little broadcasting at the time, and I was just live, just around. I wasn't, protesting or anything. I was just seeing what was going on for myself. And nobody's really, like, when I'm at these things, like, nobody's actually protesting what's going on. People are out there selling liquor and having parties and F12 and all that. And, like, I heard not one time the entire few hours out there, nobody said George Floyd's name. Not one time. Nobody.
Wow.
Everybody's out there throwing, bottles and shooting fireworks at the police. And it's just nonsense. I'm just like, it seems like everybody wanted a reason to just have a reason to go act a fool. Nobody, I mean, I didn't get it. I'm just like, why are we doing this? And that's not going to solve anything. And we don't move, with strategy anymore. And that's another reason, I believe the media does what they do, because they want us acting off emotion instead of strategy. Back in the day, Dr. Kingdom, they came with strategy. You didn't just go in and drink from the white water fountain just because you felt like it. No, we had to schedule this thing and make it right, because otherwise you'd find you on a tree, from drinking out the white water fountain. So we're going to figure this thing out. But again, we had to have us moving off of emotions, and these things are not going to change things. Secondly, representation, I'm sorry, I'm jumping off into another subject, but representation,
I love it.
Because it's just like I was saying, for our communities, if we do believe, that we're disproportionately arrested and disproportionately, given harsher sentences and things like that, look at all 95% of prosecutors are white, judges white, police officers white. We're not encouraging our kids to get into these different fields. I'm just like, well, why not, have some representation? Like, somebody told me not to encourage my students to be pigs. They want me to encourage them to be officers. I had like 2 kids that wanted to be in law enforcement. I'm like, encourage them to do that. It's like, oh, don't encourage them to be pigs. I'm like, dude, I'd rather have police in my neighborhood that I raised, so
Right.
that are, that's somebody that I know. But that's where we are. I'm just like, we have to do research. I wouldn't have known that we're, disproportionately affected if I didn't know we didn't have any representation. I'm like, well, look at the public defenders and the prosecutors and all of this. Like, all of this adds up. I'm just like, well, if we are getting those harsher sentences and we are, disproportionately affected, we don't have any representation in the system at all. And if you want to destroy a system, you have to infiltrate it. You can't throw a brick at the system. You can't burn the system down. You have to get inside of there to dismantle it. Because if you ask a computer software engineer how to hack a system, you got to break through the firewall. You got to get inside, before you can, destroy it. So I'm just like, we got to have the representation. You got to do the research. If you don't do research, you won't know these things. And listening to the media research and listening to social media research and memes is not going to take you anywhere. It's going to keep you more ignorant.
Right, 100%. I mean, Barrington, you kind of looked to infiltrate the system by running for politics. I don't know if you wanted to build off on that,
Oh,
because I mean,
absolutely,
that's sort of what you were doing.
absolutely. And that's the thing, because and that's crazy, King, that they tell you don't teach your kids that, because essentially, and this goes to why I feel like it's going to implode, because on one hand, you argue, you beg for people to have inclusion, to include you, or to have the representation. You beg for this, but then you don't do the necessary work on the back end to do it yourself. Like, you want it to be handed to you instead of actually doing the work yourself, which is really it's oxymoronic to me, right? And so I ran for office on the principle that I noticed a trend within my 32 years of living in one area, in which I seen that it was a lack of change, but yet people will always ask about change. So when I started to get inside and understand how these things work, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all. I would say the biggest mistake, and I'll speak about this candidly. The biggest mistake I made in my run for Congress is running as a Democrat. And the reason I say this, is because I'm thinking that it was, well, for one, it was it made the barrier to entry into politics non-existent, because essentially, when you look at the rules and the scope of qualifying and all of that, and what it takes to be on the ballot, it forces you to be on one side or the other. And that's the thing that people don't understand. And understanding that most of my district is Democrat, you would think that, okay, that makes sense. But when I start seeing how the party works, and how the leadership of the party works, and how basically, if you either a part of the club or you're not part of the club, and I started to see like how the fact that I'm an outsider coming in and I ran for Congress without anyone's permission, and that was looked at as a bad idea, or that was looked at as disrespectful, when essentially I'm trying to be the public servant I'm supposed to be for my people. That's when it hit me, and I was like, oh my God, this is a bigger problem than I thought it was, right? And so this is why I've been telling people from here on out, like, you have to detach yourself from these political titles. Please detach yourself from them, because all they do, or all is what's going on, is that you're just a pawn to their access to power within politics. And essentially, if we all were to say, hey, we're not going to be on anybody's side anymore, we're not playing the game anymore until we're going to change the game to based on the rules that we want, right? And we're going to tell you what we want, and we're going to put it out there, and whoever's the party that's the best comes close to these list of demands that we have, so be it. Then I guarantee you the change happens. But a big part of the game that I totally neglected is the money, the capital. Money is the biggest driver of every part of our life, including our politics. It's unfortunate, but that's the game right now. And so I think that in understanding all of this and understanding how people work, it gave me a greater insight into know how I have to move going forward, and the type of wisdom I will have to bestow on people as well moving forward.
Right, definitely. And seeing your experience play out in real time. I mean, I remember when John Lewis passed away, right? And the seat was vacant. And
Right.
immediately my thought was, oh, nice. That means Barrington's going to be the nominee. Like, oh, it's true. And I was like, and I think it was honestly a few days after I had you on the podcast the first time. It was like right afterwards. And I was like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. Great for Barrington. And then they excluded you. And there's this whole, oh my God. And I remember that. And I was like, it was a taste of that. Like what you're talking
and that's what I'm saying. Like, I needed, and it's funny how God works, or how the universe works, is because I needed to see all of that to have a better understanding of the monster that I was dealing with. And it's a two-headed monster, and they're on the same monster. Like, people think that, oh, like, and especially within the Black community, oh, well, the Republicans don't care about you, the GOP, they're racist. And I'm like, okay, even if they are, right, you got to understand those two parties run the government. So you're going to just align with one party all the time, in which you give them your support and they give you back crumbs. That's illogical. You know what I'm saying? And so just everybody, and this is why I think it's important for all of us, no matter what your identity is, no matter what race you are, no matter what you define yourself as, we have to get on the same accord and understanding that if we want any type of, we want to reclaim our power within this nation, we have to unify, and then we have to come to the table together and understand what we need or what we want from our government from here on out.
Definitely. I would 100% agree with that. And I think it starts with, to reclaim the power within our nation, we have to reclaim the power within ourselves. Like, because, a lot of people have that attachment. And when you attach to identities and labels and titles and all of these external influences, you're not connected with who you are and your own beliefs and like your own thoughts. And so it's, if you're just sort of trying to play the game, then you're not going to be authentic. And I think a lot of people are lacking authenticity right now, which is what's causing so much of this strife, because they don't see that Democrat, Republican, two birds of the same wing, at least right now. And it's interesting how they've framed the two parties over the years, but because of what's transpired, we're able to see this clearly. We're able to see how the system works. And I'm curious your guys' thoughts on the incoming, like, for example, let's say Joe Biden were to be the president. Something I've noticed is he's using the phrase healing a lot, all over and it's interesting because I very much can see that the Democratic Party owns the media. And there was a headline across almost all of the newspapers on the same day after Biden was elected. And almost all the papers used the phrase, "It's time for healing." And, like King said earlier, when the media is telling us something, a lot of times they mean the exact opposite. But they're playing almost on these ideas that we do need. But then I wonder, what is their underlying motivation? So, I mean, did you guys have thoughts on that idea of like, it almost feels like a return to old for me, for like, if we're going back to Biden, it's going to be sort of the same problems that we were dealing with before. So, but maybe with this new awareness, we prevent them. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, in terms of the healing and where we're going to where that's going to come from, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think they use certain words, for a reason. Like, when I see them saying a time to heal, it's like they're saying, "Oh, we've had 4 years of just turmoil and the Holocaust and everybody dying, and Lord Jesus, how can we get over Donald Trump?" And
Right.
that's all I hear when I hear a time to heal. So I'm just like, again, playing on people's emotions, and I don't know. I just I don't have a whole lot to say about the media, because the media is going to be the media. But my biggest thing is making sure that I'm raising children that understand, that we don't take what they say at face value. We look at what they say and we research the reasons behind why they're saying what they're saying. And I definitely think we need to teach our children that, because in my belief, I do not feel anybody like 25 and older is ever going to really just change their mind. And that's why I feel like, that's where I feel like we will fail at a lot, because a lot of adults, we just won't change our minds. And we could move forward a lot if we just simply say, okay, this was wrong, let me change my mind. But instead, we'll look at how we've thought our whole life. We'll see that it got proven wrong, and then we'll find every reason that the other reason is still wrong. It's just like we play these mind games with ourselves just to make sure that our point, that we've known our whole life, stays correct. But I definitely feel like if we don't teach children, which is where I feel like we're failing at, I definitely feel like we're going to keep going in the same cycle. And I definitely feel like we have to change our replacements. Train our replacements in order for our societies to change. If we don't train our replacements, we're going to keep going in the same circle, because the same adults are teaching these children the same thing. They're looking on social media. Nobody's really just focusing on children. I'm like, no, we need to train the replacements. Focusing on adults is almost, talking to a brick wall. You can, put little nuggets here and there, but it's to me, it's useless almost. I definitely feel like we need to train those children whose brains are sponges right now, and making sure they're the ones that we need to be teaching to heal. Those are the children that are going through a lot. Children go through holy hell every day in America, in every community, and nobody's really focusing on that issue in particular, because I don't really hear a lot about children. You mostly hear about all this nonsense going on, but that's where I am with it. I'm just all, for training our replacements. Them using those certain words, again, just trying to play on people's emotions. I'm not falling for it, but that's what I believe they're just trying to do. They're just trying to play on people's emotions, and I'm all for training our replacements. That's the only way we're going to change our society, as a whole, in my opinion, if we train replacements.
I could definitely see that and agree with that. Barrington, do you have thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Right. So this is the thing that I hate. Like I hate these buzzworthy phrases, because like when you really think about it and you really ask, like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? Like you can see that it doesn't have a basis in it, right? So for example, like how can you heal a problem that really has been existing within a nation for centuries at a time? Or why now? Why does healing need to come right now when this healing was needed like centuries ago? Because the problems have continued to persist, and not only that, they've gotten worse, right? So when you say these things to me, what are you really saying, or what are you trying to say, and why are you saying? These are the things that I wish people would ask. And just like just to bring up a alternate point, just to pivot just a little bit, I always used to think about how they used to call the late great congressman the conscience of Congress, when essentially all while he was living during the pandemic, Congress only could pass one stimulus payment to the people. And I'm thinking to myself, if this man was legitimately the conscience of Congress and he couldn't do anything for the people by himself to be a legitimate conscience of Congress, then what does that say about Congress in general, if that makes sense to what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I think I echo the same sentiments as King, as far as, we have to get the younger generation prepared for this battle that's taking place. And I just really feel like it is. And I don't mind saying battle, because it's basically a competition between the old guard and the young guard. And we understand what needs to happen. We understand what has to happen moving forward, but they're still stuck in these archaic, outdated ways that has only benefited them. And I think it's important to note that the change that we want is not going to be given to us. We're going to have to take it at some point in time. And this is by, allowing ourselves to be within fields that we haven't been in. This is allowing kids to become cops. This is allowing kids to become public defenders, lawyers, judges, things of that nature, because it's needed, and this is going to take a cultural as well of a change within values as well. And I think that, as King echoed as well, like these younger kids they specifically need the healing. But if we're going to really talk about healing, we have to really promote solutions that cause actual healing, because we hear the same thing every election period. It's rinse and repeat. Vote like your lives depend on it, because it does depend on it. Vote or die. All this stuff happens every 4 years, and people tend to not pay attention. And I get it. I understand, because on one end, the hustle and bustle of life takes you away from really zoning in and paying attention to things. But 2016, to me at least, it wasn't that long ago, and I still remember these same phrases being uttered as if they were brand new, and they're not. So I just think that ultimately we just have to pay attention to what we're being fed and speak truth to power and call it out when it's absolute BS, because that's what it is.
Right. 100%. And, it made what you guys were talking about makes me think that the healing that's sort of being promoted is more of a healing in the sense of masking of the symptoms that have emerged over the last few years, instead of healing the root foundation that is causing all of these problems. And it's sort of almost a, you can treat, it's like the medical model of the United States, for example. You can treat the symptoms, but if you're not going to actually get to the root cause, you're just masking the true problem. And so the healing that they're promoting is very much surface level, because if people were to heal, if people were to heal themselves and understand themselves a little bit better, that would create less of a dependency on these people who hold all the power. And I think, that's what they want. They want that dependency. They want that control of the perception. Perception creates reality. So, and, I see a lot of policies being proposed by, the incoming administration that sort of further promote this dependency and despondency and taking away from who we are and taking away our inner power. And I think the time for action is now. Like, I think it is now. Like, it has to be now. Otherwise we keep going down this road and it only compounds and compounds and compounds further. So, people have to take action. They have to be willing to take risks, make a leap of faith. Like, yeah, it's going to be scary, but you're going to be glad you did it. You want to live a life of regret, or do you want to get like when you're old and you're on your deathbed, it's like, man, think of all the things I could have done? Or do you want to, die saying you did the best you could? Like, I think that's all we can promote, and taking those steps, taking those healing steps. And, it's something that I focus on a lot personally. I think it's something you guys clearly do personally as well, because I see you guys taking leaps of faith. Like, I think we talked about that like on each of your guys' podcasts, like, the steps you guys have taken, and it's incredible to see. Like, it's true leadership, and that's the true role models we need of society. So, I do think we have enough time. I think we're going to be all right as a nation. I think we're going to heal, and it might take a little while, but the system is everything leading up to a period of transformation, leading up to a period of growth. Right before it, there's always a storm. Like, it always feels like chaos, but that storm is what brings the gold. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, the purpose of chaos is to produce order.
yes, 100%, 100%. And so, I don't know about you guys. I feel good. Like, I feel like I sit back at the end of the day and I say, what a time to be alive. Like, honestly.
Yep, glass half full all the time. For me, I'm always smiling, always giving. You gotta look at the glass half full. You can't allow the world to, hold you down. Just keep looking at the glass half full. I'm always looking at the happiest things to think about, regardless of what happens. I'm just like, well, what is there to be happy about? Somebody has it worse. That's just my way of living. So that's how I stay happy. Only person that could successfully make me upset is my wife. That's the only person. He's gonna keep that special right.
Oh man, Barrington, did you want to build on that at all?
Oh no, I'm in total agreement. Like, I don't have bad days, man. Like, because I understand that there's so many moments within a day, right? And so if something gets me down or something irritates me, aggravates me, makes me angry, I understand. The very first thing I tell me is that this is a moment. Why? Because 6, 7, 10 years from now, you won't even remember this. Like, this won't even matter. So if it won't matter even tomorrow, it won't matter. You won't remember it. Why is it bothering you so much right now? And as King said too, only the special people, the very, very special people, the people that I care how they feel about me can make a dent in my psyche. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, I think the more I realized, like, the more I failed, and the more I failed openly, because that's very important. It's a difference between failing in secrecy and failing openly. I think that's like allowed me to have the confidence and the competence to understand that all my failures and all my hardships are just temporary, essentially. And as long as I keep that in mind, as long as I understand who I am and understand where I'm trying to get to, then essentially, like, it's nothing to worry about. As much as I catch flack on Twitter for some of the things that I say, I don't care. Like, it's totally fine to me, because I know that I'm speaking from my heart. I know that I'm telling the truth, but more so, I know for a fact that the things that I say are going to come back around, and people are going to be like, damn, man, like, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I get it. Like, I tell people this all the time. You have to think about it. The greatest people in our society, or or the people that are regarded as great people, they often spoke truth when everyone else was silent, right? They
Yeah.
often said things when nobody else would say these things. And essentially, even though they caught a lot of hell, right? Years later, they forever are revered and forever are immortal because they had the guts to do what a lot of people didn't do at the time. Imagine if a lot of our, and just to give an example of our civil rights icons, were just stayed quiet and never spoke out against the truth that they felt innately within their heart. We will probably still be in segregated or have a lot of same issues that we did now, but they knew that something was wrong and they spoke out about it. And even in the midst of their own people telling them, shut up, be quiet, you're making it harder, they kept going because they knew deep down there was a problem, and they spoke truth to power. And I think that when we growing up in a time, or excuse me, existing in a time where you have cancel culture, when you have people who are afraid to go against the grain, and to the point where it's popular to be quiet about the truth, I think that it's a great thing to be able to still stand on your laurels, stand on your integrity, stand your ground in what you believe in, because essentially at some point in time, it's just like hitting an ice sculpture in the same spot. As soon as you see that crack, it's going to be a great day, you know? And so I think you just got to keep that momentum going towards righteousness, that is.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, the natural order of life is growth, is evolution, and just working towards that. You know, speaking of cancel culture, the way you break cancel culture is to speak the truth to it and allow people to feel truth, see truth, and recognize it and be like, oh, you know, let's say Barrington, you tweet something and everyone's like, I want to cancel Barrington. You know, the right, the right people, I'm sure it's happened. The right people see it, and eventually over time, you leave that legacy. And I think that's what it's all about. Like, if you're
Absolutely.
thinking,
Like, you know how many people, like, I caught hell for a couple of tweets I said last week, but you know how many people like went in my DMs, and it just shows that like you can be the spark that is needed to build the inferno for change. How many people that say, hey man, you catching hell, but I agree with everything that you're saying. Like nothing you say is wrong. And that's cool with me. Like maybe you don't have you don't have the guts, or you don't even have the space to be able to speak truthfully as you would need to be, or as you would want to be, but that doesn't go for me. Like I'm gonna tell the truth, because that's what needs to happen, because it's the moment that you quiet truth, you allow so much BS to come into play, and we don't want to get to a place like that in society.
yeah.
Yep, and I have to get people to understand, you know, if nobody's talking bad about you, you're not doing the job right. Even Jesus dealt with cancel culture.
Correct.
So you have to understand that, you know, everybody was talking about him. He was not a big popular person. Nobody didn't like Jesus while he was here, you know. So I'm just like, you know, it's okay, and everybody loves him. You know, even Dr. King had people who hated his guts until after he died, and everybody's like, oh my God, now I understand, you know, what he's saying. But just like, you know, Barrington was saying, we're just not going to allow people to hold us down. And I was told this story by this older guy, which is the reason I never really get angry. He was saying that if I had $100 and somebody stole 10 of my dollars, would I lose the $90 trying to get my $10 back? And I was like, no. So he was like, why would you let them ruin your whole day, you know, for a small moment? I was like, well, there you have it. There's no reason to be angry. At least I got $90 left. I'm not going to waste my $90 trying to get $10 back. So I definitely understood that, and that was a big point for me. So we have to keep moving. You know, people are going to say things regardless of if you say what they want, what you want them to say, or if you say things that they want you to say. Excuse me. So they're still going to have something to say, regardless if you wear the clothes somebody wants you to wear, if you say everything they want you to say, whatever. Somebody's still going to have something to say. So just be you, be yourself, and live life. Hakuna Matata.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love that, you know? And I think what it comes down to, and what I've focused on a lot for me personally, is like you need to be almost willing to like die for your authenticity and for your truth. Like release that fear of it. Like, you know, and I mean, you mentioned Jesus. I mean, they freaking crucified him. Like, you know, they hated him clearly. But look at that legacy 2,000 years later, like the principles that he brought up. And, you know, the principles he spoke of were love, compassion, interconnectedness, like unity. And so it's, you know, it's, you got to be willing to go beyond the individual self and sort of realize the grander purpose. Like what are you here to do, and how does it better not just yourself, how does it better humanity and just the world in general? And I think if you can connect with that purpose, that level, then the fear just, it's like, why am I going to let this minor fear, this minor inconvenience hold me back? And you're able to excel, soar. And I think that's what people need to strive for. And certainly not easy. We're all taught to worry about our self-esteem, but so it's just a journey, man. We're all on the hero's journey, so it's all about that. I mean, so we're at about an hour, gentlemen. This has been a fun conversation. I mean, do you guys have any like final thoughts or like things you want to leave listeners with? Like what comes to mind based on what we've already talked about? But I don't know. I guess either of you.
I'm gonna be brief, man. 3 words: love, empathy, and compassion. That is gonna get us out of the situation that we're in right now currently, and it's gonna allow us to transcend any other time we've ever existed on a human front, I believe. I think that ultimately when we understand to be open to other people's perspectives and their understandings of life, and we allow those perspectives and understandings to cultivate the way we see life itself, I believe something beautiful happens when that occurs. And I think that going forward, if we just open our minds and open our hearts to accept people for who they are and what they want to be, and essentially possess the necessary empathy and compassion and love for those people, I believe that like, not to be cliche, the sky is the limit to the things that we can achieve and the advances that we can make, but we can only do those things together.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. King, do you want to build on that at all, or your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm going to be brief as well. Love, compassion, and mutual understanding. I definitely think that's super important in regards to us moving forward in our communities. Get up and go do, something in your community. Go make the change you wish to see, or push those you see making the change that you'd like to see. But don't, focus on one person to do those things for you. It's going to take a collective effort.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree wholeheartedly with what both of you guys said. And I don't think I even need to expand on it further. Like that's the direction we need to take. And that's what it's, I think as long as we focus on it, we'll move forward day by day, step by step. We're all just walking each other home hand in hand. So it's going to be beautiful. So gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like this was awesome. Yeah. I love this. Like we need to do another one. I had a feeling this was going to be a good trio, and that feeling was correct. That feeling was correct. All on the same wavelength of what sort of direction we need to go, even though we're all coming from such different like backgrounds, different perspectives, different walks of life. But it just kind of shows you what those underlying principles of what we need are, and it's truly beautiful. It's truly beautiful. So can't thank you guys enough for coming on the show. I mean, I've had a blast.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. I know it's your first one, man. We got to do a part 2 because I'm pretty sure something's going to happen in the news. We're going to want to talk about it.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Let's plan on it. I mean, I think we'll all know when that time comes. It'll be like, that was it. Let's hop on.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did as well. Successful live stream.
Absolutely.
So to all the viewers, peace out. I'm going to press the end stream button, and that's going to be a wrap. All right. And boom, is done.